All right, what's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with Invincible. Yes, we are. The story, which is amazing. So in the last video, I left you guys off on yet another cliffhanger where basically Alan the Alien was confronted by Thrag, right? We call him Freddie Mercury here on Comics. Actually, you know what? You guys call him Freddie Mercury here on Comics Explained, and I am now obliged to call him that. I mean, he looks like Freddie Mercury, right? I mean, come on, But anyway, so the idea here is that Alan the Alien and Oliver were going to basically discharge the Scourge virus on Earth, which is guaranteed to kill the Viltrumites, but may also destroy humanity. And where Nolan, Omni-Man, was against it and basically had the tar beat out of him by Alan the Alien for his insubordination and his willingness to stand in the way, that Mark was very much willing to do the same thing. The difference here is that Thrag had basically shown up right at the last minute when a fight was breaking out between Alan the Alien and Mark, and basically is now confronting Alan about what's going on. So the funny thing about this, and really the way this picks up here, is that Thrag makes this just kind of really convincing argument very, very fast. One of the things he asked him, he's like, so here's my question, right? He's like, you show up here with the Scourge virus in hand. One, we knew you were here, right? Like, our ability to monitor this entire solar system, it exists. Like, do you really believe that we would take up residence on this world without the ability to know what threats may face us from beyond this world? Which makes sense. Tell me, why shouldn't I kill you right now? And the response of Alan the Alien is he basically pulls out a weapon which has a single dose of the Scourge virus. And at that point, he basically tells Freddie Mercury, because I can shoot you with this thing and it'll essentially kill you. Now, here's one of the funny things about this. Freddie Mercury is very, very intelligent when it comes to how it is that he deals with anybody else out there, especially when it comes to him being a leader. And one of the things that he says is he's like, I'm fighting back every urge I possibly can to rip you limb from limb right now, which he could. Despite how powerful Alan the Alien is, Freddie Mercury could just rip him apart with the greatest of ease. Remember, he's the leader of the Viltrumites. He's the best of the best. And so the thing about this is he says, if that were to happen, let's say, for example, that I were to kill you or you were to shoot me or something along those lines, he basically says we would end up right back where we are. And so much like he did with Mark and Omni-Man, he simply says, I would like to propose a truce. And that's when he really comes up with this genius idea. So the stance he takes is that, yes, Alan the Alien could shoot him with that dose of the Scourge virus, and it could very well kill him right now. The Scourge virus doesn't kill instantaneously, though. It's not as though he would shoot him and he would immediately die. The Scourge virus takes time to run through the bloodstream, and it actually spreads by contact. And so because of this, if Freddie Mercury is shot with this Scourge virus, then it would basically lead to him killing Alan the Alien right off the bat. And then, of course, he wouldn't travel back to Earth because he wouldn't want to kill off the rest of his race. So he would likely leave and travel out into space. He probably wouldn't make it back to the headquarters of Telestria, the Coalition of Worlds. He wouldn't make it back there in time. So he would likely just slink off to some part of space and then just succumb to the virus and die. But because of the fact that Alan the Alien would be dead, and because there's no way Alan is foolish enough to bring a singular dose of the Scourge virus here, that it's all being held off somewhere, that ultimately he would be succeeded as the Coalition leader. His successor would come to Earth, and the whole thing would happen all over again. And so what he says here is, you are under a tremendous amount of pressure as the leader of the Coalition of Worlds to do something about us as the Viltrumite race. Here's the problem. There's nothing you can do. I mean, technically he could, but Freddie Mercury actually appeals to the empathetic side of Alan the Alien and simply saying, you've been thrust into this role and you were put in this position without really understanding what this role entails. And I would like to believe that over the various conflicts that we've had, I've learned to understand you well enough to know this is not something you actually want to do. You're doing this because the Coalition is telling you to, but it's not really something that you actually want to do. And he's like, if you look inside yourself, you'll come to the conclusion it's true. You don't want to release the Scourge virus on here and potentially eradicate the whole of humanity, but you're being told the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And to a degree, that's an accurate statement, but remember, the entire concern of the Coalition of Worlds and everybody else out there in the universe is that the Viltrumites will reside on Earth long enough to basically repopulate their race to a substantial number and then go back on the attack in the universe itself, right? Go back to their ways of trying to conquer worlds and rebuild their empire. The truce that Freddie Mercury is offering here is that they will stay on this world. They won't go back to their ways of trying to conquer the universe or anything along those lines. Now, Alan is not immediately on board with that. His stance is, I mean, we can't necessarily trust you. But the response of Freddie Mercury is, but like, you're back into a corner, so you really really have no choice here. There's really nothing you can do. Every time you come back here, we'll kill one of your coalition members, and we'll do it preemptively, right? Like, you're gonna have to be in proximity of this world to fire off the scourge virus. And our technology is sufficiently advanced enough that we can detect your coming arrival. So we'll fly out there, we'll obliterate your ship, we'll kill everybody on board, and then we'll come back, and that'll just be the way things are. From now until however long, we'll destroy the invading enemy force, and that's basically it. And so where Oliver is actually tired of the whole conversation and initially goes to attack, the response of Alan is, no, Thrag is right? Thrag is accurate here. Like, it really is in our best interest to let the Earth be. And at that point, the worst possible thing happens. The Guardians of the Globe show up, right? These guys, these meddling kids. So these guys show up. And of course, they're sent here by like Cecil, right? Because that old man can't mind his own damn business. And so because of that, they start kind of asking questions, right? Like, what's going on here? Like, who is this guy? Different things along those lines. And Mark tries to immediately neutralize it, right? Remember, Mark is a fugitive as far as the superhero community and law enforcement go. So the fact that he's here dealing with what appears to be a threat off-world seems to indicate to all of these guys that he's working against humanity, or at least setting the stage for some kind of an attack against the human race. Of course, it's opposite of that, but because of the fact that the Guardians of the Globe don't really know exactly what's going on, their stance is, okay, everybody here, right? So like Alan and Thrag and Oliver and Mark, like, you guys are all basically gonna be detained back at the Pentagon until we can get all this sorted out. But the response of Mark is, that's not going to happen. There's no way it's going to happen. And then at that point, it leads into an attack. Now, Freddie Mercury is just kind of watching all this unfold, right? And so is Alan the alien. But Freddie Mercury's response is particularly interesting. He's just kind of like, I mean, this is interesting, right? Like, Monster Girl steps in and tries to attack him, and he just kind of casually dodges the attack, right? Because she's just painfully out of her league here. But the overall gist here is that Freddie Mercury seems to be largely dismissive, right? He's just, I mean, and it makes sense. It's all so far beneath him, right? Like, no one on the Guardians of the Globe is a credible threat to Freddie Mercury, right? So it's just kind of like, I mean, you guys really going to like attack the guy who just saved your world? Like, this is kind of ridiculous. But in the middle of it all, ultimately Oliver gets fed up. He basically grabs the Scourge gun and then flies into Earth's atmosphere with the intention of just like basically firing the Scourge virus into the atmosphere of Earth and eradicating all the Viltrumites, possibly even destroying humanity in the process. Now, Mark ultimately catches up to him. And so a fight actually breaks out between Mark and his brother, which is cool. It's not a great big huge conflict, right? It's not like a fight to the death or anything like that. Nowhere near as significant as the fight between Mark and Omni-Man, but it is still a cool battle. Mark, of course, ends up getting his hands on the gun itself. And then as things progress, basically Alan the alien stops the entire fight in space and is like, the entirety of your world's at risk. I have to go. So he basically races off. And then at that point, the Guardians of the Globe are like, who are you, Freddie Mercury? Like, what's your deal here, right? So basically, the superhero community is coming face to face with the leader of the Viltrumites for the very first time and learning about the race's existence, at least outside of whatever they overheard in the fight between Mark and Omni-Man. But when you get back to Mark and Oliver, the two of them are basically wrestling for this gun, and then ultimately, Oliver fires it off by accident and shoots Mark in the face with the Scourge virus, right? Now, Mark, of course, passes out, goes crashing back down to the ground, or at least starts to crash down to the ground. Alan catches him, and then Mark basically comes to. And that's the crazy thing, is because Alan's like, okay, dude, are you good? Can you hear me? And Mark's response is, yeah, man, I'm fine. The blast just caught me off guard, but like, everything's cool. The big concern Mark has is, because the gun was fired in the atmosphere, what's the range, right? Like, is it going to just spread throughout the world? Like, how's this whole thing going to work? And that's when Alan says, no, that was a singular shot, right? Like, we fired it over the ocean. It's not going to be a great big huge deal, a little seep into the water, maybe, if that, but it was designed to be a singular shot that would only work in a limited range. The nature of the Scourge virus is that it relies on personal contact. So you've been infected. If you go and touch a person, that person will infect more people, and then it'll spread exponentially, right? That's what led to the Scourge virus infecting the entirety of the Viltrumite race so incredibly fast. Is one person's infected, that person touches 2 people, those 2 people touch 4 people, 4 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32, 32 becomes 64. You see what I mean? It just starts multiplying exponentially. So like literally within a day, the entirety of the Viltrumite race is pushed to almost complete and total extinction. That's what would happen here on Earth. And so the response of Alan is, no, like, you have to be quarantined. You can't be around here, right? Like, you can't touch anybody. You need to be quarantined. You need to be kept away. You're exposed to the virus. You could literally be patient 0 hero, you could be the thing that would kill the world. But the response of Mark is, no, I'm fine, right? Like, I don't feel sick, like everything's cool. But the response of Alan the alien kind of harkens back when he's like, no, the virus incubates in the body. It's not an immediate reaction. So you have to be quarantined here. But in the middle of Mark fighting and arguing, suddenly Alan the alien begins to freak out. And the reason why is because Mark is showing all the symptoms of a person who's succumbing to the Scourge virus. In effect, Mark is dying. With that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.